So I've gotten a letter or two about a chapter in my latest book, The Art of Creating a Magical Session. The chapter that I'm getting some feedback from, some interest, is about therapeutic rituals. You know, the best way to do them, how do you create them, how do you know when to do them, and those kind of things. So I wanted to briefly talk about therapeutic rituals and how, when to use them, how to create them. Big thing I want to start with is anytime you're doing a ritual, I would really recommend that you not think of it as a technique that you're doing to somebody. And the therapeutic ritual needs to be something that happens fairly spontaneously, in that you're using what your client is giving you to help design something to help your client. So as we talk, I don't want you thinking about this as a technique you do. Oh, when they do this, then I'll do this, and then I'll do that. That's not what I'm talking about. So what is a therapeutic ritual? Why would we use it? Therapeutic rituals, the way I use them, it's a way to move clients into a different place without the need for left brain dialogue. Sometimes we get stuck in our language, in the therapy of therapy interaction discourse, and we need some kind of out of the ordinary experience to kind of move us in a different direction. A therapeutic ritual for me, it's something that indirectly mirrors the client's situation, their problem state, whatever you want to do. And it's a symbolic representation that when we have the client do a ritual, either they're overcoming in the ritual the symbolic representation of their problem, or we're creating a ritual of action that gives clients access to resources that will help them become more effective at solving their own problem. An example of somebody who needs resources is I had a client who had a lot of abandonment issues from way back when, but it got down to it. One of the things was she always felt she needed someone in her life to take care of her, that she didn't think she was able to be taken care of. Now, consciously, she knew this was not true, but unconsciously, she needed an experience that she could rise above things and do things on her own without deferring to a man in her life or some other person. So one of the things that I kind of had her do was to take a wilderness survival training. It was about 5 days. And in this training, she went out for 5 days and learned how to live off the land, how to survive, how to, what plants to eat, how to gather water, build fire, build shelters, all this primitive skills. And what that taught her is that no matter what happens to her job, her money, her relationships, life in general, if you drop her out in the woods, she could survive. So no matter what happened to her, she always had the skills, the resources to be able to transcend her present situation. And that kind of helped her to deal with some of her abandonment things. Yes, she was abandoned and still had those issues, but going through an experience of taking care of herself, realizing that at the end of the day, in a survival situation, nobody's going to take care of you but you, gave her a skill set at the unconscious and conscious level that may have helped her more effectively deal with those abandonment issues. So rituals that indirectly mirror the client's situation and that are symbolic in nature, I put these into place when the clients feel stuck, they feel frozen, or there's certain behavioral patterns that need to be adjusted. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips on designing these, and let me know what you think and if this works for you. The first thing I'd say of any therapeutic ritual is that it has to be something random. Something random. When you're telling somebody to do a ritual, it has to be random. It has to be an out of the ordinary experience. If we're asking clients to do something that's very familiar, that's not enough of an experience to really change and transform them. It has to be a little strange. It has to be a little odd. And I will say it has to be a little mysterious. I often don't tell my clients why I'm asking them to do a certain ritual, which adds to the mystery of it. I just ask them to do this and then report back to me and give them a way to fill in the blank. I might even say, and then after you've done this, I want you to sit and think about why you needed to do that. What was the hidden message in that? What was your unconscious mind needing? And they will fill in the gaps from their own experience. So I don't have to sit and tell them step by step. But my not telling them the real meaning of it or always why I'm doing it, it kind of adds to that mystery. Because if it's a ritual that people do that is not out of the ordinary, it'll have no effect. Think about here in the United States, the Pledge of Allegiance. That's a ritual at the beginning of a sports event. So let's say you go to a baseball game and then you hear the national anthem and they'll even say, please rise or whatever. And you stand. Some people, put their hand on their chin, they take their hats off or whatever, and they'll sing it. If you go to a baseball game every week during season, that's still a nice ritual, but it doesn't have any impact because we're so used to doing it that it's not an out of the ordinary experience. I mean, as an aside, that's my little issue with a lot of the folks out doing the psychedelics these days. They talk about, these spiritual experiences. But if you go back to a lot of those indigenous cultures who may have used those, they didn't smoke pot every day. They didn't drop acid all the time. It was saved for a special occasion, and there was a lot of buildup to make that a real ritual so that the effects were even more powerful. And I think that if we have a ritual like the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's wonderful, but if it's so ordinary at that point, it won't have any effect. So we need something out of the ordinary. So for an example, I wrote about a Mexican curandero, a Mexican shaman who had a lady come to him who was having all these, mom issues, from way back when and needed help. So he told her to go get a watermelon, a heavy watermelon, and to take mom's picture and tape it to the watermelon. And then to carry the watermelon up and down a mountain path. And then after she'd done all that hard work of carrying mom on the watermelon, she was to sit and look at the watermelon for a minute and think of all the things that mom had done to her that she didn't like. And then she was to take a bat or something and then hit the water and just destroy the watermelon. Collect the pieces, put it in a bag, and then sit and think about the things that she gained from mom, even if mom was difficult. And then she was to go plant that in her garden and then plant a beautiful flower over the top. And in the interaction after the fact, the woman found that by doing that ritual, she was able to let go of a lot of some of this baggage and ties she had with her mother. So it indirectly mirrored the heaviness carrying mom, because that's what she's doing. Even though she hadn't had any contact with mom for a long time, she's carrying mom everywhere she goes, up and down these paths, and how much that watermelon probably got pretty heavy after a few minutes. And then to put all her anger and destroy and express those things in that form, and then to plant something. So we're done with it, we're putting it down, and then putting something beautiful over the top to grow. So it's all very symbolic. And sometimes, like I say, that therapeutic left brain discourse can only get so much. We need that emotional experience. The next thing is effort. There needs to be some effort on the part of the client in the ritual. We may not need them to do something that's way beyond their ability, because then they just won't do it. And we might not need to do something that's so extremely intense because they might not do it. We need to do just a little bit outside their comfort zone. So it needs to be a little difficult, but at the same time not so difficult that they're either incapable of doing it, or they feel overwhelmed, can't do it, or it's just too much of a hassle. Okay, so an example of this would be, well, let me just give you a metaphor. Let's say your client runs 1 mile a day and jogs 1 mile a day, and she or he's jogging 1 mile a day. And you go, all right, for this next week, I'm going to need you to jog 1 mile and a fourth. So 1.25 miles. It's going to be hard, but you can do it. Well, if they've been running every day, that 0.25, yeah, it's a little more, but they can do it. But if you tell them, okay, as part of your ritual, you need to run 10 miles a day, it's not going to happen. All right, so think about that. If they are given too much or it gets overwhelming, they probably won't do it. And I'm in the habit too of, for the most part, if I'm not willing to do something that comes out of my mouth, I never expect my client to do it. So I try not to ask anybody to do something that I would not do. I remember reading about this healer named Pachita, who was from Mexico, and she was a psychic healer. And she had a young man come to her, and he had a lack of willpower. He said he was lazy. He couldn't, get himself motivated to go find work, and his mother was enabling him, and he just couldn't find work or a desire to find work. So she gave him this ritual, in that every evening at 6 p.m. he was supposed to drink 2 big glasses of water, and to not use the restroom until 10 p.m. And at 10 p.m. he was then every night supposed to use the restroom to urinate into a pot, a large pot. And he would take that pot and was supposed to put it under his bed. And he was not to sleep anywhere but in his bed with that pot underneath. Now, in this situation, there was no air conditioning. So you can imagine the heat from this. They were in a kind of a tropical area of Mexico. Heat started to, overnight, very uncomfortable. So every night he was supposed to do this for 28 days and then come back to Pachita, and she would talk to him. Well, after 28 days, he went and got a job. And when she was asked about this, I think her comment was, it takes a lot of willpower to drink a lot of water and hold your bladder for longer than you normally would. It takes a lot of willpower to every night go and put a pot of urine under the bed. And it takes a lot of willpower to sit there and smell that all night, that unflattering smell, and to have to sleep in the bed. So she was giving him all the resources. Now, I'm not saying do this with your clients. I'm just giving you an example of kind of an indigenous way of thinking about this. So we want to give our clients something that's maybe a little difficult, that requires effort. If we are trying to get them to change their behavior, it's not out of the ordinary. It's far too easy. It's nothing really connected to their problem, and they have a real conscious awareness of why they're doing it. That's a limitation. So what I recommend is go back and read some of the masters who gave therapeutic rituals, people like Milton Erickson, Jay Haley. Jay Haley wrote a book about Erickson's rituals he called Ordeal Therapy. Highly encourage you to go back and read that. Now, Jay kind of believed Erickson's reasoning for these therapies were a little different than I do, but you get a good view of how these were structured. So take a peek at those. Try out this idea that, do something random, something absurd, something that requires a little bit of effort and is certainly out of the client's ordinary experience. And I think you'll find some really interesting things happen. So let me know what you come up with. Have fun with it.